Welcome to Stem Cell Friends, and today we are learning about Marie Curie. Marie Curie was born on the 7th of November, 1867. When she was 4, she taught herself how to read, and because of the shocked impression on her siblings' faces, she cried. She later helped her older brothers and sisters with their math problems. In 1877, Russia had taken over parts of Poland. But Marie grew up to hate the Russians. In 1875, Marie's sister Zofia died from typhus. And in 1878, Marie's mother died of tuberculosis, also known as the White Plague. We'll do a further video about tuberculosis. Now back to there again. Marie wore her sister's coat, Zofia's coat to be precise, to her mother's funeral. Apart from studying, Marie didn't want to do so much, apart from crying and sleeping. At the age of 15, in 1883, she graduated first in her class. She showed the medal she got to her father, but she still was sad about her mother and Zofia's death. She went to Paris as soon. As a woman, she wasn't allowed to go to university. That was because back then, they thought that women weren't clever enough to be scientists. Nowadays, we know this is nonsense. But back then, they thought that was the actual truth. But that's not true, and Marie helped to prove it, along with Emily Pankhurst. We'll talk about her in a later video. So, she wanted to go. She wanted to go to university, and so did her sister, Broya, who wanted to become a doctor. So they made the floating university with her sister, Broya. But by working as a teacher and a governess, she was able to move to Paris, also help her sister, Broya, to become a doctor. Thanks to Broya, Marie Curie eventually moved to Paris to study at the Sorbonne. There she got a degree in physics and mathematics, eating mainly bread and tea, and sometimes fainting near starvation. In Paris, she met Pierre, who shared his lab with her. But Marie longed to be in Poland. She really wanted to be in Poland, especially Warsaw. But when Marie returned to Warsaw, she found out that getting an academic position remained a challenge. So she went back to Paris and met Pierre Curie, creating a very powerful scientific team. Also, Pierre had also created a tool which could measure radioactivity later. One day in 1896, Becquerel discovered that uranium kept on emitting a strange X-ray-like radiation that could interact with photographic film. This made Marie Curie experiment, and this made her research about this using her experiments. And the Curie soon found out that the element thorium emitted similar radiation. The Curies named this X-ray-like radiation to be radiation. Most importantly, they discovered that the quantity of the elements affected radiation, and not not what chemical it is. This made the standard model of the atoms being indivisible objects. Next, by focusing on a super radioactive ore called pitchblende. And just a side note, they were working very dangerously with all this radiation, because radiation can be bad for human cells, as you'll later find out. Okay, let's get back to that pitchblende. They discovered that uranium alone could not be producing that much, and oxygen, the only clueless, the one we knew so far in pitchblende, couldn't be the one. After all, we're surrounded by oxygen. O2, 21% of the air is. Let's not get to the atmosphere again, though. We have a different video about that. Now, back to that. In 1898, they found two new elements, polonium, which was named after Poland, and radium, which is Latin for ray. In 1902, they had extracted 1/10 of radium from several tons of pitchblende. In 1903, Pierre and Becquerel got a message saying they should get the Nobel Prize, but Marie was overlooked. Pierre stood up for Marie, and so both of them in 1903 got a Nobel Prize, along with Becquerel, making Marie Curie the first female to win a Nobel Prize. The only thing is that Marie didn't travel there because her father had died and she wasn't wanting to travel far because of that. Everything was going to well until in 1906, Pierre, while crossing a busy part of the road, was crushed by a horse-driven chariot. Marie, devastated, put herself into her studies and took over Pierre's teaching position at the Sorbonne, and she was so good there that she became a professor, the first female professor there. She later found... Before that, in 1911, she won another Nobel Prize, but this time in chemistry. Her last one was for physics. This one is for chemistry, for finding radium and polonium, and for the extraction of radium from several tons of pitchblende, which was an incredible feat at that time, because nobody had done anything like that until then, which is pretty remarkable. But because of her health decline, she went back to the UK to recover. There and soon Germany had struck with World War I. Marie Curie had an idea, along with the help of Erin Curie, one of Marie Curie's oldest daughters, before the Nobel Prize they got, to help her to create portable small X-rays in the cars known as the Curies. Also, just as a note, Marie Curie also got a doctorate. That means she became Dr. Marie Curie at one point. And also that she was the first person to get 2 Nobel Prizes in 2 different subjects. That was amazing. But back she hid her radium supply so she wouldn't lose it. It also cost over, I know this in dollars, not in pounds, over $1,000 just to get 1 gram of radium. That is expensive. Really expensive. In 1934, she died of bone marrow disease, which was caused by a radioactive exposure. After all, radium was producing this toxicity. Also, just as a note, Marie Curie put in her pockets, like these test tubes, filled up with radium. She liked the way how it glowed this pretty blue. Irene also won a Nobel Prize, but she died because of leukemia, also caused by the same fate Marie did, the radioactive exposure. And Eve Curie lived into the 21st century and died at the age of 102. One last thing. She saved over an estimated 1 million people. Now, that is all about Marie Curie. Now, signing off from Stem Cell Friends. One last thing, though. This is our final last thing. Marie Curie paved the foundations for a lot. Her experiments were carried on by other scientists. She also paved a lot of technology, medicine, and cancer cures, making X-ray smaller, technology, and more. I just named a few, but there are thousands more. She saved lots of people too. Now, finally, signing off from Stem Cell Friends, Mixed Friends, an extra part of Stem Cell Friends.